Here, yesterday, they went over all the details with a whole new information to learn about the surplus lands, the lands available. So last night after class, we went straight to the computer, we're looking it up, and we stayed up till midnight last night researching it. We were just so on fire about it.
Most of my successful students are steady investors looking for repeatable deals that will build wealth year after year. Lee Lineberger, who buys tax deeds in Georgia, has found a way to make steady, reliable income from low-priced, tax-defaulted properties. So you're saying I could go to a tax and I could buy a tax deed on a $5,000 property for $250?
Yeah, if that's where the bidding started and nobody else was there to bid the price up.
Was there a lot of people there usually at these sales?
Sometimes there are a lot of people and sometimes there's nobody.
Okay, well, let's say I'm lucky and I go and there's nobody there, and I buy one for $250.
Right.
Okay, and if I just take that home and leave it in my safe deposit box for 4 years, do I get the property at the end of 4 years?
You get the property. You get fee simple title to the property. You get the best use that you can get of it.
So
possession and use.
Wow, so I get a $5,000 property for $250.
That's correct.
Wow, a little guy can do that. Anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it.
Okay, does this happen on houses?
Happens on houses.
What about on a commercial buildings? Does it ever happen on a commercial?
Happens on commercial buildings.
It does. And you buy
factories.
Factories even.
Happened up in an adjoining county on a big factory.
Oh.
The corporation didn't pay the property taxes and they sold it on the courthouse steps.
Wow. So you could buy just for the back taxes.
Right.
And whatever those penalties are. And anybody can do it. I mean, I don't have to, do I have to be a citizen?
All you got to do is have some money.
All they care about is your money, huh? Okay.
Right.
As long as you got green money.
It has to be in cash or approved funds, whatever that might be. And the tax official is going to tell you up front, you know, how you're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You might have to have a letter of credit from your bank. You might have to have a certified check. You might have to have cash, you know.
So you do call the county and ask them what you need?
Yeah. They'll tell you, you know, you got to have cash, or you got to have a certified check, or you got to have a bank letter.
Yeah.
Or they might take your personal check. They're not going to give you a deed until your check clears anyway, so.
All right.
But they've accumulated some expenses, so
yeah.
If you buy it at the tax sale and don't pay for it, then you become liable for the taxes.
Now, do you call yourself a real estate investor? Or are you entrepreneur? What do you like to call yourself?
Well, I now call myself a real estate investor.
Real estate investor.
I've been a builder and a land developer and a little bit of everything along the way, but now I call myself a real estate investor.
Okay. Is your primary business to buy tax deeds?
Pretty much so. That and sell real estate, finance real estate.
I see. Now, why did you pick tax deeds, for example? It must have been something that motivated you.
Well, I'd known about them for all my real estate career, some 30 years, but I never had the time or the money or the inclination to get involved. And a few years ago, I decided I wanted to get involved in something that I'd always been kind of fascinated with. So I went to a couple of sales and was the only one there, so I bought a number of pieces of property.
What's the most you ever bought?
At one time was about 15 pieces.
15 pieces. Wow, that's incredible. Okay. Now, you went in this obviously because it was lucrative. I mean, it's a lucrative business, is that right?
You get a good return on your investment, plus you may end up with the property.
Okay, so the deal is you either get a great return, like 20%, or you get the property. It's one or the other, is that right? Well, could I lose my money doing this?
Well, yes. If you don't ever do anything with the property after you get it, your money's gone.
Oh, you mean if I don't keep paying the taxes, then the government's going to foreclose on me?
That's right. One of the downsides of this business is that once you buy the property, once you get the sheriff's deed, even though you don't have possession of the property, you still become liable for the property taxes.
Oh, so I got to pay my taxes.
So if you don't pay them, then it'll be right back on the courthouse steps again.
Okay. But I mean, if I follow the rules, can I lose my money? I mean, if I pay my taxes, am I okay?
As long as you pay your taxes and follow the rules, the government, the local government that sold you the property will guarantee you that if the property is redeemed, that you will be repaid your principal that you paid for the property at the sale, plus a legal required return on your money.
Lee is a clever man who has adapted to the market. Lee, on the surface, doesn't appear to have any special talent. He learned how the system worked and began buying one property at a time. He didn't get greedy. He found a system where he could buy vacant lots inexpensively for pennies at tax auctions. Here's a few examples. Give me an example of buying one of these. Can you give me an example?
Well, once you buy it at the sheriff's sale,
right,
and you wait a year,
right,
and then you foreclose the right of redemption,
right,
which means you basically go through the foreclosure process again. Give everybody notice again that this is their last time. If they don't come through and pay the property taxes and the penalties and interest, that they're going to lose it forever.
So you're treating these people pretty fair. You're telling them a lot of time.
They have as much notice as you can give them, as long as you can find them. Now, some people you can't find. They've gone. They've abandoned the property. You
but
don't
most
know where
of
they
them
are.
you find. Most of them you find, though.
Majority of them you find.
Okay, good.
And they have put on notice that this is that last round. If they don't do it this time, it's over.
Okay, so
They
you got
don't
the property now. Now what happens?
So once I do that and all the documents recorded at the courthouse saying that I've done everything that I was legally supposed to do, then I can sell the property.
Okay, good. Now I know you brought a big stack of papers with you. What do you got in that big stack of papers?
Well, the most important part of this process is being able to convert that piece of property into cash. And the way I do it is that I sell the property and I finance it for people.
You finance it. Why would you do that?
Well, it gives people that might not be able to afford to buy a piece of property and pay cash or don't have good credit to go to the bank and finance a piece of property the opportunity to own some real estate.
I see.
To have a piece of the rock.
Have a piece of the rock, huh? Can you show me an example of one you bought?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like
well,
to see.
This is one that's going on right now. A young couple that's married. Matter of fact, I went to the wedding. And they've been renting an apartment, paying about $500 a month rent. And the girl's a waitress, and the guy is works in a golf shop, and they make enough income to be able to afford to buy a home, but they just don't have that accumulated big down payment that you have to have. So the guy that the lady works for sells manufactured homes, so he said that he could probably get them financed for a manufactured home, but they needed to find a piece of property to put it on. So they called me, and I told them that I would sell them a piece of property and I would finance it for them for nothing.
Do you own a lot of these now? I mean, you could sell them a lot. How many do you own?
Well, this year I paid taxes on 94 pieces of property.
94 is the number you said?
Yeah. Now, some of them I own. Now, not all of these are tax properties. Some of them I bought. Some of them are houses. Some of them are lots that I bought years ago. And
how many are tax properties?
Probably 60 or 70 of them.
Lee is following a plan he proved works. He didn't just jump in and buy a bunch of property. Between 2002 and 2006, there was a big run-up in the price of property, followed by a real estate crash in 2006 through 2010. Now, if Lee had bought too many properties early on, and then the market tumbled down, he might not have been able to get them sold quickly. But working just one or two properties at a time, he minimized his risk and provided himself with a steady income. Now let's hear more from Lee and about how he sells those properties. Okay, let me just take a look at that. Can I just take a look at it? This says you paid $266 and I don't have my glasses on. It looks like about 95 cents. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's what you paid? And what was it? Let me see what it was. What was that?
Well, this was a 0.85 acre tract. About a little over 3/4 of an acre tract of land.
No, what is it? This is kind of like a map of all the different properties?
Right, this is a subdivision map.
Okay, which one did they get?
And this is the one up in the corner.
And you only paid $260 for that, $266 for that?
Right, it's got paved road.
This is a
all
paved road?
Utilities, yeah. All
wow.
utilities. It's a lake access lot. That is, it's not a waterfront, but it owns an undivided interest in a waterfront lot.
So somewhere out here there's a lake or something,
yeah.
Huh? A nice lake or what?
15,000 acre lake.
Now this is an old swamp now. It's really a lake.
No, this is one of the best lakes in the state of Georgia.
Has it got any fish in it?
Yeah, a big, great bass fishing lake. They had the Bass Masters tournament here this year.
What did you sell it for?
I sold it to them and financed it for nothing down for $4,900, which is about the market.
I don't believe that.
Which is about the market price and what the tax assessor says the property's worth for tax purposes.
The tax assessor said this is worth $5,000?
Right.
What is this document?
Well, this is where I've sold it to this couple.
Okay. Let me have a look at it.
For $4,900 and
okay.
Spread out over.
No, where? Oh, there it is. It says $4,900 and that's what they spent. Now, how much do they have to pay you?
$75 a month.
For how long?
For 20 years.
Now wait a minute. In 3 months' time, you get all your money back?
Yeah. Do it on a pretty regular basis.
You got another one you can show me?
Yeah, here's another one that's
You got a whole file of these ones here. There's got a lot of them. Okay.
this is a lot that is an acre lot, and I sold it to an older couple, and they're planning on building a retirement home on it. And I bought it at the tax sale paid $264.62 for that one.
This is a share's deed again, it says here.
Right.
So this is what you get at the sale. You're telling me you bought this lot. Now, is this a nice lot too?
Yeah, it's an acre lot.
It's an acre lot. This is a 1 acre lot. It says $264.62. And this is signed by, what are these, all these seal numbers up here? These it says the deputy clerk.
Well,
So this is an official document.
That's recorded in the courthouse.
Recorded in the courthouse. Holy cow. Now, what did you sell that one for?
For $4,900, same
Price, $4,900?
I found that's a good round number that people can live with
So people pay about $5,000 for a nice lot like that.
in this area.
Yeah. Now, did they give you cash for that?
No,
What did they give you?
they give me a contract for deed,
Now, what does that mean?
which means that I'm financing the property for them. I maintain the title in my name, and I agree that if they pay me out as per the contract agreement, that I will give them a deed to the property.
Okay.
And basically, it says that if they pay me on time for 24 months, at the end of 24 months, I'll give them a warranty deed, and they'll give me back a security deed note, and they will be vested in fee simple title to the property.
Lee, how do the people know about you? I mean, how do they know that you got a $5,000 lot for sale?
I run little small classified ads in the newspaper.
And so those are your little ads that are circled there, huh?
Right.
Oh, 0 down. So these guys don't have to put any money down.
No.
You just finance them. Well, aren't you kind of afraid they won't pay?
Well, the value stands for itself.
What does that mean, value stands for itself?
Well, the land is still there.
So if they don't pay, you take it back?
The land was here when we got here, and it'll be here when we go. It's always going to be there. So if they can't pay for it, then somebody else will. I bought one that it had a single-wide manufactured home on it.
I see. All right, so you got 4.5 acres, and how much you have to pay for that?
I paid $331.74.
Oh, now this is unbelievable. Let me have a look at that. I mean, $300 for 4.5 acres? $331.74. Ooh, boy. Ah, okay, good. All right, so did you ever sell it, or do you still own it?
No, I sold that one.
You sold it?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you sell something like that for?
I sold that one for $15,000.
$15,000?
Right.
Did you finance it?
Yeah.
Boy, did you have the paper with you?
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. So this is a deed to secure debt. And on the deed to secure debt, it says right here, and you just did this one recently, it says $15,000. So you're telling me a guy could do this, he could buy a 5-acre lot, and it even had some improved property on it, had a manufactured home on it.
Right.
And then you bought it for $300, let's say $400, and you sold it for $15,000.
Right.
I'm sure you're getting it. Buy low and sell low. I do not recommend that you hold property, but clearly Lee has worked out a system that is profitable for him. If the finance buyer doesn't pay, he can take the property and sell it again. Since he is not depending on the buyer's financial statement to pay the loan on the property, his system works. If the buyer defaults, he just forecloses and repossesses the property. Let's switch to another unique deal. Lee dealt with low-cost vacant land. Joseph Springarn, a dentist in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, bought a condominium near his office. He paid a little more than I advised, but there were circumstances that made this particular investment very attractive. It was a well-maintained facility, and it was near his office, which made it practical to bid higher than the 25% of full value and still make a good profit.
In the meantime, we were studying your books and your tapes because we thought with the tax liens that it was a very good idea, and we got interested in tax lien foreclosures because we figured we could buy properties for 10 cents on the dollar, like you suggested. We saw what properties were available at the local courthouse. We went to one auction just to see what it was like, and then we got our investors together because we didn't want to put our money, we want to use other people's money. and we got a bunch of investors, and we found a property, and I think it was the second or third auction, and we wound up getting a condominium that had a tax lien of about $5,200 originally. It was built in 1975, two-bedroom apartment in a nice area of Fort Lauderdale, downtown Fort Lauderdale, about 5 minutes from the beach. And there were about 50 people at the auction, and only 5 were actually bidding. And the final bid was our bid of $79,000 or $80,000.
Wow. So what was this worth? What kind of value did it have?
We had, when we went on Zillow, the comps were at that time 175 to 225.
So this had significant value, and yet it was coming up for only $5,000 at back taxes.
Back taxes.
But what about the mortgage?
And we did our due diligence, looked up all what was on the property. There were no liens, there was no mortgage. This was owned by an older couple who passed away.
Wow.
And nobody had paid the taxes, of which the county wanted $5,200 where the bidding started.
So if there was no other bidders there, what might have happened?
If there were no other bidders, if we were the only bidder,
Yeah, if you were the only bidder.
we would have got it for $5,200.
Wow. But there was 5 other people that...
5
had
other
it.
people bid up the property. Most dropped out at $45,000.
I see.
3 people remained, and then finally 2, and we got the high bid.
And so you bought it for $75,000 and...
79.
$79,000, okay. So did they actually give you a deed or a piece of paper to show
Well,
ownership?
then you have till 2 o'clock the next day to come up with the funds. If somebody pays before you get to the counter, it belongs to the owner.
Okay, so if the owner came in and found out about it, they could pay?
They could still pay until we actually pay at the counter.
Right.
Once we pay, the county issues a deed to us.
Right. Which is a good thing, because the government isn't in the business of screwing people out of their property.
Right.
They are in the business of getting taxes.
They want the homeowner to pay the taxes. That's what they...
Right.
Because politically, it's not the correct thing to do to take your property.
Right.
They just want their taxes,
Yeah.
plus interest and any fees.
Good. Well, all right, so you bought it for this round numbers, let's use $80,000 if that's okay. So you spent about $80,000 and you took your little group. How did you get your little cohesive group together and decide that you'd all do this? Did you have to educate them, or?
First, we found a property, and then we decided we didn't have $80,000 to come up, whatever it was. We didn't know what it was. Our limit to bid is if we think the property's worth $180,000, we'll only bid 50% of the property. So now we needed $90,000 cash.
Okay.
So we went looking for investors, and I went to my son, and one of his friends is very wealthy, and we told him what this was. I have another patient of mine who I know for years, and she came into some money. She said, "Can I be part of the deal?" So there were 3 investors: my son, his friend, and this other lady that I know.
You kind of syndicated the loan like a banker would, huh?
3 of them put up money, and we said, "We'll give you 50% of the profits."
So you gave them 50%.
Right.
That was terrific. Wow.
In the future, we'll go to a hard money lender, which
Now,
would have been
so
less money.
Yeah, now why don't you explain that, because a lot of people see this won't
A
know
hard
about.
money lender will lend out money on property. In this scenario, we would show them the property's worth, let's say, a minimum of $175,000. They'll lend money up to probably 60, 70%. And they'll give you 12 to 15% interest with 1 to 3 points, depending on the lender.
So you could have had money for a third of what you actually paid.
Right.
And
You asked what made us do it. Well, I found in life, most people, when you're asking people to change. And change is a frightening thing for most people. And unless you do it, nothing's going to change.
Right. Right.
So I'm one of those individuals that's not afraid of change and take a gamble.
Okay. All right, so you're very fortunate in Florida. You can buy tax liens, 18%, or you can actually get the property. So either
Right.
way, so you can go to, so those are 2 different sales that you went to.
Right.
Now, was it intimidating at the auction? Was that something that, I mean, is the average guy going to be, oh, this is something really worried about, or is it relatively?
Well, you should go to 1 or 2 auctions beforehand and actually see what's going on, like we did.
Good.
We went to see what it's like. And then do your homework before. Know what the property you want. Thoroughly make sure there's no liens, that there's no, what the mortgage is, IRS lien, any encumbrances on the property. Some properties we've seen, they sounded good at first till we looked it up and we saw they had city liens on them. One property had, I think, $2,000, it was a $60,000 property, and it had, I think the tax was $300. The city had $30,000 worth of liens.
Wow.
So we weren't gonna play around with that.
$30,000 worth of liens.
Probably
Child
code
support.
violations, not cutting the grass,
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, and it adds up over, let's say, 10 years,
Yeah.
plus interest. Now, had we known about those a month before, maybe we can go to the city and make a deal with them, but there's so many other properties, we don't want to waste our time.
What would you tell a person that just that was just getting started? What would you tell them? Someone that they're either seeing me or getting a mail piece or something. They're afraid. They're just, you know. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of apprehension whenever you invest in something new. You said you don't mind change, but most people, they don't want to change. But so to change, they have to make this investment. This is kind of making them nervous now.
Well, there's two. You have to say what you're aiming. Do you want to do it for an investment and just buy the lien like you would buy a stock or a bond? It's a very safe investment. And buy a few if you're afraid and see what happens.
Yeah.
In the state of Florida, you can go to an auction, but at the auction, you're not going to get 18%. The banks are there, and they'll bid it down to 0.25%. But when they go to the counter, the state says, no, the minimum is 5%. So a lot of people don't know that. So once they bid below 5, most people leave. But the banks will take it and they go to the counter, and they're happy to get their 5%.
Sure they are.
Now, if banks and insurance companies and these big entities are buying this, they're not buying risky investments.
Good.
So I figured if it's good enough for them, it sounds like a good deal. If then another investment aim is like we did. You want to buy a property for 10 cents, 30, 40 cents on the dollar, you go to the deed auction and do your due diligence and bid on these properties.
Right. Without giving away any of your trade secrets, when you went to the auction, you mentioned that if it was I'll use a round number, if it was a $200,000 property, you wouldn't bid more than $100,000.
We wouldn't bid more than $100,000.
Okay.
And I think you said like in other states like Texas. In Texas, the mortgage is not forgiven. In Florida, it is. So if you have a $200,000 property in Texas and there's a $50,000 mortgage, we won't bid more than $50,000.
Right.
Because we have the mortgage, 50, and our 50. That's 100,000. That's 50% of the value.
So it really isn't scary if it does have a mortgage. That's not the end of the world, but it's much better if
But just know your numbers.
Yeah, exactly. How long did it take you to learn the numbers?
On each property?
Yeah. I mean, is it a laborious job, or can you do it
No,
in 10 minutes?
most of it's online in 5 minutes.
So you just look it up online and you can figure it out right away.
Go to the records in the county, and for those counties that don't have it online, you have to actually go to the courthouse and look on the records.
So exit strategy is important, but don't buy unless you know the exit strategy. Right. Is that fair? I mean, I like to tell people that anybody can buy, but
you should know the end of the road before you get on the road.
Exactly. All right, so let's take one more minute before we go and look at this property. And you said it might have a value of all the way up to 180 or even higher.
Right.
Okay, and you bought it for about 80,000.
80,000.
Well, that was a terrific buy. That was a terrific
so that's why we purchased it.
Yeah. Now, was it scary when you got there? Because you didn't get to see the inside. You didn't get to see a big high-rise.
It's scary because we weren't allowed into the actual apartment until you had the deed.
So it's a little
The
risk.
county doesn't let you into the property.
Okay. So a little risk, but not a big risk, because, I mean, they wouldn't...
We looked at the perimeter. The condominium was in a good neighborhood. It was well kept. We spoke to the neighbors.
Oh, you did? That was good.
And they said that unit had been vacant for 10 years. Nobody had lived in it.
Wow.
So we knew that it would need some fixing up.
Sure. Well, let's go see what you did to it. Dr. Joe got himself a nice condominium. He didn't use his personal money, but he had investors. His investors are happy. They are getting a great return on their investment. And Dr. Joe is happy. He put up no money and is making thousands of dollars. What's the lesson? He put to use his training. There's nothing stopping you from doing the same thing. He is doing something I don't recommend, but he's doing it in a very efficient way. He's fixing up the property. My experience after 40 years of investing is, I find it rare that doing more than general cleanup will increase the value of the property. In Joe's case, it worked out. You can learn from what he did and make it work for you. I suggest that you buy low and sell low quickly, and use the money that you make to move on to the next deal. Cash flow is important. In this business, every time you make a deal, you should try to increase the amount of money that you have for the next deal. If you're spending your time rehabilitating, you are not making the next deal, and your cash flow will be a problem. Selling is the most important part of this business. Let's hear from Dr. Joe again and how he sold this condominium. Well, Dr. Joe, where are we now?
Now we're in the actual apartment that we bought. They just laid the tile. The grout's not even down yet. And we're in the living room. The kitchen is in the background. And we installed granite, all brand new appliances. What we did is we went to Sears, 6 months, no interest, so we haven't paid a nickel yet out of our pocket.
Great.
All the equipment from Home Depot was 1 year, no interest, so we haven't paid a nickel for any of the material.
So this is really a low budget out of your pocket. They don't have much
So out
money.
of the pocket,
Yeah.
even though might be $6,000–7,000 worth of material, we haven't paid a nickel yet.
You don't have to pay for it. So you can, when your buyer finishes buying this whole thing,
We
they
pay
can
it off.
Send them everybody a check. And you have it sold now? You have a contract
And we already
for sale?
sold.
Already sold it.
Well, we haven't closed.
You haven't closed.
We got a deposit of $10,000, and he has to get approval from the condo association, and probably within 4 weeks we'll be closed.
So you paid $80,000, and what did you sell it for?
For $135,000.
$135,000. So that leaves you about $45,000 or $50,000.
$10,000 in improvements.
Okay. All right.
So that's $45,000.
$45,000. Okay. And so you and your partner split that.
We split it. So that's about, we figured it about 110% rate of return.
And you managed to sell this thing before you even finish it.
Right, we've sold this probably around 45 days after we had a buyer. We weren't going to try to sell it till it was all fixed up, but the electrician who came on the project said he wanted it for his daughter.
I suggest you always have multiple exit strategies. In Dr. Joe's case, he got lucky and a tradesman working on the condominium made him an offer. You may get lucky just like Joe did, but I would like to see you be a little bit more aggressive about marketing. Drew Miles followed one of my marketing suggestions with this $1 million ad idea.
How many people want $1 million ad? So Ted says, get out a pad, which I did. Everybody else, get out a pad and a pen. Write this down. He said it goes something like this. Foreclosure bargain. 3-bed, 2-bath, whatever it is. Fixer-upper. Appraised value, by the way, I didn't tell you that the appraised value on it was $51,000. Must sell, $29,900 with my phone number. So I said, Ted, maybe you didn't hear me. The appraised value is $51,000. Why you want me to sell it for $29,900? And Ted, being the ultimate diplomat, said, Drew, maybe you didn't hear me. Because I said, do you want to sell this house? And you said yes. Place the ad. So I placed the ad, folks. The ad cost me about $65. And within about 3 or 4 days, I had 54 responses to this ad. 54 people raised their hand and said, I want this property. Now, I don't know about you, but I got married recently, and we sent out thousands of invitations. Thousands. All over the world. Thousands. I didn't get 54 responses to my wedding invitation. I knew we had a winning system. Is that a winning ad? Yeah. So now I got 54 people want this house. Ulster County is 3 hours away from where I live in eastern Suffolk. So if you go through the normal process of selling a house, it goes something like this. You put that ad in the paper if you decide to sell it on your own. And you get a call and the person says, I'd like to see the house. And you say, great. When are you available? They say, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Y'all had that experience? Yes. Next guy calls, says, I'm available Wednesday at 4. Next guy calls, how about Saturday? 3 in the afternoon. How many times am I going to have to drive back and forth 3 hours to Ulster County to sell this house? Forget it. So this is what you want to do. You want to hold a buyer's convention. And this is what a buyer's convention does. This is what you do to hold one. You simply say, you call those people back personally, and you say, I will be at the house Sunday morning at 11 a.m. That's it. Here's the address. Did you say nobody else would be there? Nope, you didn't. How many times did I have to drive up to Ulster County 3 hours? Once. I get up there, it's pouring rain, like the end of the earth, pouring rain. There's 15 cars in front of my little blue house. How am I feeling? I'm feeling pretty darn good. They're already climbing all over the deck and in the backyard. The fellow's still living in the house. They're in there talking to him. And by the time I walked from the car to the front door, 3 people came up, 3 groups. It was, fathers and sons, husbands and wives. The young couple that ultimately bought it was one of the 3 people that came running up to me, and they gave me a down payment right then and there, and they signed my paperwork. I wasn't there more than 40 minutes, folks. I had 3 offers in writing with down payments. Is that a little better than the quote-unquote normal system?
That's just one of the many ways you can generate interest in a property you own. If you're buying multiple properties, it's a good idea to build a buyer's list. In Drew's example, several people contacted him. As a matter of fact, he had 50 inquiries. He can only sell the property once. However, if he keeps a list of inquiries, the next time he has a property for sale, he already knows interested buyers. Keep a list of people who have shown interest in the property you are selling, and then contact them when you have a new property. This will save you marketing time and money. Bob Schumacher is a knowledgeable and experienced investor. When he gives advice, it's the result of years of experience. Now here's Bob again.
Went back to that county, and this time I had IRA funds. And I thought I'd try the strategy of buying as many liens as I could, kind of at the low end of the dollar spectrum, lots of vacant land, mobile home lots, even some orchard property, and ended up with a couple of them with houses as well. And I was trying to play the numbers game to see if I could end up with property. And so purchased 33 liens. I mentioned some of the strategies. This is another thing of just going to the sale and watching the first few parcels go and see what the bidding strategies are of your competition. And so having been to some of the sales in Maricopa County, I knew that the houses would be bid on the most. And so even in that small county, the properties with houses on them were going, a lot of them for 7 to 10%, some of them 12%. It just depended on the property. But the ones with vacant land, you could get for 14, 15, 16%. But remember, I live in Georgia. I can get 20%, and it's 20% penalty, so it's calculated immediately. It's not a prorated interest rate. So, I didn't have to buy these properties, but I just wanted to see if I could end up with a piece of land in Arizona, and so I gave it a try. So, by being selective, I was able to get 16% on all but 3 of those 33 liens, and the lowest interest rate was 11. I think there was one at 11, one at 13, and one at 14 or something like that. But most of them I got 16% on. There are some pitfalls to the strategy that I employed, because one of the quirks of Arizona is, and you'll find this in some other lien states too, is they charge you a fee of $10 for every lien that you buy. And that fee does not, I repeat, does not get passed on to the taxpayer when the taxpayer redeems. So that's money that you donate to the county for the privilege of attending the tax sale and buying the lien, and that you will never get back. So if you don't get at least $10 interest by the time that lien redeems, you've actually lost money in that lien. But you just have to be willing to play that numbers game, knowing that you're going to lose money on some of them, but you'll make money on others. And also, I've also noticed a lot of properties will redeem within a week or two of the tax sale, but the only penalty to them is like 1 month worth of interest. And that's not much at all, so people are willing to let their property go to a lien auction because the cost to them is very low. The consequences are very low of it actually going to a tax sale and them redeeming it the week after instead of the week before. So you're going to find in lien states that pretty often you'll have some of your liens redeem right away. And so you're thinking, well, gee, I went to all this work to invest my money, now I got it back. But keep in mind that in Arizona, when June rolls around, you have to pay the subsequent year's taxes. So that's just a 4-month span. So you can take that money that got returned to you and roll it back over in June, roll it back into the properties that you still have tax liens on. And also, another thing that you can do is that if it turns out that there's some decent properties that didn't get bid on at the tax lien sale, usually the ones that get no bids at all are pretty lousy properties. But if you notice that there's some decent properties that nobody bid on, you could take note of that. And if you get some quick redemptions and you have some money you want to roll back over, you can just get on the phone and call the county and say, hey, can I still buy the lien on parcel number such and such? And they say, yeah, that lien's still available. You say, well, I'd like to buy that one, please. How much money do I need to send you? And they tell you down to the penny how much it is, and you send them the money, and you can get the certificate that way over the counter. And you don't even have to go back there to do it. You can do that over the phone. So the $10 lien fee does put you in a dilemma, doesn't it? If you want to buy those a lien on a piece of farmland or a mobile home lot where the lien only costs you $50 and you got a $10 lien fee, it's going to take a while to accumulate, even at 16%, $10 worth of interest. So you can either play the numbers game, knowing that enough of them are going to wait to redeem or maybe not redeem at all that it's worth your while, or you can ratchet up and compete against the people who are bidding on houses. Because if you are successful in, say, spending $2,000 on a lien on a nice house, well, it won't take that long to get that $10 back, will it? But if you had to bid down to 7 or 8% in order to get that lien, well, maybe that's not an interest rate that you want to get. So that's the things you have to balance against, and everybody here is going to make a different decision if you go to a lien sale here in Arizona. You just got to say, well, what are my philosophies on how I want to invest my money, and everybody here will probably come to a different conclusion. And there's no wrong answers here. It's just that you have choices, and some of the choices are thrust upon you because of that $10 fee there that kind of throws a wrench into everything. You just need to know that it exists, and you will have to pay it when you buy a lien.
In this business, there's always something new that you will encounter. No two deals are exactly the same. Questions will come up. In my workshops, I frequently invite questions from the audience. Now here's an edited portion of a live question and answer session.
Your question is nice and loud.
Hi, Bob. When you go look at vacant property, do you actually physically walk the perimeters of the property, or do you do a drive-by?
Usually a drive-by, because once again, it's technically trespassing if you walk the property out. But if it's out in the middle of nowhere and there's no other houses around, who's going to say anything? So if I have, especially if there's some characteristic of the property that I'm concerned about, like maybe there's things I can't see from the road, maybe it's an acre of land, but I'm concerned that maybe the back half of it is a swamp or floodplain or something, and maybe there's not enough room to build a house on, something like that, or I think there's gullies on it, or some characteristic that either make it more valuable or less valuable.
Thanks. Let me segue into that. Don't buy a property unless you've seen it. Let me say it again. Don't buy a property unless you've seen it. Let me say it again. Because I'm going to hear you cry the blues about the burned down house that you bought that you thought was some. I'm going to hear it. You're going to call me, oh, Ted, I got this burned down house. What am I going to do with it? Well, you should have gone and seen it in the first place. Quick question, and we're going to run out of time.
Quick question on, in Georgia, are you responsible for the mortgages? And is it a good idea to buy insurances, or are you responsible for any of that because it acts like a lien?
I think that was 3 questions. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'll be glad to answer it. First of all, the insurance. If you buy a tax deed on a house that has a property that has a house on it, you do want to get insurance, and you do have an insurable interest on it. So your insurance agent may hem and haw and say you can't, but I have an independent agent that works with several different companies, and he's always able to get insurance on a property. But if you only have a little bit of money in the property, and maybe the lot's worth more than what you paid for the whole thing, I don't even bother with insurance. But if it's a valuable house, yes, get insurance on it. What was the other part of the question, real quick?
Mortgages.
Oh, mortgages, when you do the foreclosure process, it wipes the mortgages out.
But you don't have to pay it?
No, never. You're never responsible for the mortgage, ever.
Bob, my question is, I noticed on one of your screen you had maybe 5 or 6 or 7 different states. How do you personally determine where you will go, which state, for example, or which county, since there are so many counties within the same state?
Okay. The closer to home, the better. For instance, I went to a tax sale last week. It was 20 miles from my house. So that's the best determining factor. If you can sleep in your own bed and do the research and go to a tax sale close to home and make money, that's far and away the best you can do. Now, when I invest in other states, it's almost never make a special trip to do that. It's almost always combining it with some other purpose. For instance, I have gone to tax sales here in Arizona after going to one of these seminars. Ted has often had them in February while the sales were going on in Arizona, and I would just schedule my time so I'd spend several extra days after the seminar is over with, and I'd go out to some distant county elsewhere in the state and pick up some tax liens. So your incremental cost, you're going to be out here anyway. If you're visiting family, visiting friends, going on vacation, if you can just schedule while you're in that state to go to a tax sale, you can end up paying for your whole trip and then some.
Bob, in the scenario where you've obtained the tax certificate, okay, you've paid the taxes, you got the certificate, you don't pay the taxes next time around, next investor comes around, pays those taxes. What happens to the first investor? Are they paid off and the second investor pays it?
It's going to vary from state to state. You'll get paid off one way or another. Now, in most states, since you own the older tax certificate, you have the first opportunity. Let's say that you can foreclose after 3 years. Well, your certificate will become 3 years old before the other investor's certificate. So you have the first chance to foreclose on the property, and at that time, when you begin foreclosure, you'll have to cash the other person out. Now, if they start foreclosing first, they'll have to cash you out. Now, recently in Arizona, I think they've changed the law to where you as the investor have to pay the subsequent year's taxes. You don't have the option anymore. They used to give you the option of whether you wanted to. I think they've changed the law to where you have to now.
So 2 things he said. 1, the rules are important. The rules are they different in every county? Yes. Important to know that. Okay, I said earlier, first in time is first in, let's do it again. First in time is, okay, so she bought a tax certificate. What's that going to tell you for the rest of the deal? She's first in, okay, first in time is first in line. Here's a question.
Let's assume the back taxes were $600 and I pay $2,000 because I'm the top bidder. Is that, in essence, kind of an anti-incentive that now the homeowner or the property owner has to pay $2,000 instead of the $600 they owe in back taxes?
You better be real specific about the state.
Yeah, if it's, did you say Texas?
Georgia.
Yeah, Texas or Georgia, either one will be the same thing. Is that if it's a penalty state, the penalty has to be paid on the full amount that you as the investor paid. And so you can see where it can get really expensive for that delinquent taxpayer to let it go to a tax sale.
Okay, they're not getting it, so let's do it. The taxes on the property were $2,000.
No, taxes were $600. I bid up because I'm bidding.
Okay, so you bid to what?
To $2,000.
Okay, and what is your expectation? Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. You're going to get paid based on what?
$2,000.
Okay, but Bob knows the rules, and now you learned the rule. So he was going to bid.
Yeah, if I bid $4,000, I outbid you.
Or even better, I'm bidding 20. Now, how much is the homeowner going to pay on?
20.
How much is the homeowner going to pay on?
20.
Is that good? Are you glad you learned that?
Yeah, to redeem it,
Okay,
yeah.
Bob told you from experience, he only bid 7. What should he bid? He gave you the example. If you bid 20, he would get 20% of 20,000. Is that good? Say yes. Okay, is 20% of 7,000 good? Okay, so what's the rule? The rule was that homeowner has to pay based on?
The final sale price.
Okay, thank you. That was good.
For using your Roth IRA for certain properties, what criteria do you use? Because I plan some in Roth, some in plain IRA or traditional IRA.
That's it. 2 questions. That's it. Let him answer them.
I use the Roth as much as possible just because I'll never have to pay taxes on the gain. But I have the traditional IRA just because I'd rolled over my 401k from my previous job. So, but the criteria for bidding are just identical to whether if it was money coming right out of your back pocket.
The details on the property don't matter to you?
Well, it doesn't matter what entity I'm putting it in, whether I'm putting it in LLC, IRA, or in my personal name, any of those 3. My
Start
criteria
over and do the whole thing. Everybody's going to be totally confused. First do regular IRA and then a bit on Roth IRA. This isn't a Roth IRA class, okay? I don't want to spend the whole time on it, but I want to spend a couple of minutes. It's important to you to understand, but you are going to have to study what? What did I say this morning? You all need to study what? The rules, and then you also need to study, because I recommended you all get an IRA. Is that true? Ted gets paid a lot of money when you get an IRA, right? I don't think so. The point is you need to start learning about IRA. This is not a what kind of class? Okay, good. So do 2 minutes on that and then we'll come back because we're going to run out of time.
Yeah, your strategy for bidding should be basically the same no matter what, whether you're bidding with your personal funds, whether it's IRA funds or corporate funds or whatever, because your objective is to make money. You might be more willing to let a property sit for a few years in one investment rather than another. That's your personal decision. But as to if you're setting these entities up in the first place, my entity of choice would be the Roth IRA, because you don't get to deduct your contributions when you make them. You don't get to deduct them for your taxes, but your reward is that you never have to pay tax on the gain.
Just real quick, on the foreclosure procedure, what happens if you can't find the owner?
If you can't find the owner, that's usually good. Very few states actually require you to find the owner. So what happens is you send certified mail, and so you have, with return receipt, so you have documentation as to whether they claimed it or not. And you also, in most states, you have to publish in the newspaper. And so you've served them by certified mail, you've served them by publication. If you can't personally find them, that's their problem.
Does that mean what he explained to you is going to work in every state? Could every state be different? Could every county be different? It's important you know the okay, you got to get that. Okay, so we can only tell you about the knowledge we have of that particular county or state. We can't tell you every single state, so you have to know the okay,
and
it's
that's
up to who?
especially true in the instance of foreclosure.
Yeah.
Very important to know.
Okay, and the last question before we have lunch is?
Hey, Bob, I'm Leon. If I receive the bid on a, let's say, $2,000 tax lien, what is the restrictions on assigning that to another investor?
That is, again, up to the state laws. Most states allow you to assign, but they'll charge you a fee to do it.
In other words, you could get it and you could assign it to me in almost all states, but we can't tell you exactly all 3,300 counties, can we? You have to get that from the okay, so this is, you're going to hear that a million times over the next few days, and you're actually going to hear speakers come up and tell you, because they knew the rules, they made $6,000, $10,000, $20,000, and Bob is an expert at that. But let's show Bob how much we appreciate him right now. Woo! That's good. That's good. Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
If you have questions you'd like answered, I provide a weekly Wednesday evening question and answer hotline. Another consideration might be a personal coach. From time to time, Bob Schumacher and others offer personal coaching to my students. To find out more about the question and answer call or personal coaching, contact my office, 321-449-9940.
Well, there's a ton of material. I haven't even looked through all the manuals and everything we're going to get. For me, personally, what I really enjoy is listening to other people's experiences, because, like I think one of the presenters said, you learn something new with every deal. Well, if I can be picking up some of those tidbits from people who have done several different types of deals, then that puts me ahead of the game. Ted, thank you for having the workshop. It's been a great experience. I mean, it's good for me to kind of get out and meet everybody, meet all the coaches, not just my coach. And Ted puts together a pretty professional workshop, so it's all been good.